Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
The Black Panther is ready for you!
Let's go ahead and get into something. You ready?
I'm set.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Part 2. Joining me today is the one, the only, the Beeves of Staxies.
The Staxy, the ultimate Staxy.
Mm-hmm. I am, of course, Sid Part 2. Staxy, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we are talking about T'Challa and his ceremonial title of the Black Panther.
The Black Panther is ready for you!
I fucking love that intro so much.
Me too! I've been, just listening to it on repeat. I love it. So yeah, we're gonna...
Oh, I don't know who that voice actor is, but he's marvelous.
Yeah. Marvelous.
You see what I did there?
Yeah,
yep.
that was a good one. Yeah, so Black Panther is one of those characters who's, I never really cared about at one point in time. I just thought he was, I mean, I remember joking with Bobby about him at one point. I'm like, oh, so Black Batman. I sincerely remember making that joke. And on some level, yeah, a little bit. But at the same time, he's got a cool factor inherent to his blackness, or directly proportional to his being black that Batman does not have.
It's true. It's true.
I remember, Bobby and I made that joke when we found out that at the time in the comics he was taking Daredevil's role. I'm like, okay, at this point he is literally just Batman. He is Black Batman now. And
He is.
You know what? Still cool.
I mean, Black Panther is singularly richer than both Tony Stark and Batman put together. So...
Yeah.
There is just a level of, Batman's cool, but Black Panther, man.
Yeah, and, for me, it's weird because all my knowledge on the character comes from very limited sources, where, the version of the character that I get, this guy is really cool, this guy is awesome, is Hudlin's Run. Everything else is very limited exposure, where I kind of like him in that because I already like him for Hudlin, or... wow, this is not good. Cough, Ultimate Avengers 2, cough.
Yeah.
That
was a weird movie.
Yeah, and so, that was the first time I ever saw Black Panther in anything. And so I was very confused, and I legit thought Black Panther had, anamorphic powers, where he, became half man, half panther. And I thought that was weird.
He does in that movie.
Yeah, and I thought that was weird. I just assumed that was a thing connected to the character, in all versions. And it's not. And so, those are kind of my exposures to Black Panther in a lot of things. Civil War, I like him in Civil War, and I think he has a good character arc in Civil War. I don't really imagine that anyone that didn't know who Black Panther was walked out of Civil War and was like, Black Panther was my favorite character in that movie.
Oh, no. That is completely not true. I went to see Civil War in the theater at least 4 or 5 times. Every time, I have all of these friends that know nothing about comic book movies. They don't really care about superheroes or anything like that. Almost universally, people are like, well, that movie's pretty good, but Black Panther was amazing.
Okay, cool.
So it comes down very specifically to 2 scenes. One of them being where... They bomb the UN building and T'Challa's dad dies, and Black Widow's like, well, fine, Bucky, and T'Challa's like, don't bother Miss Romanoff, I'll kill him myself. And then the very end where he puts down the mask and he doesn't let Zemo kill himself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so no, that movie did a lot for Black Panther.
No, I mean that's great. I just I think he's an important part of that movie, and I think he's got probably the best character arc in that movie, which is really saying something. But I just didn't I didn't think that anyone would come out of that and go yes, Black Panther's the coolest character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. But I'm glad to find out that people did feel that way.
Yeah.
Black Panther for me is a character that honestly, I read one thing and it perfectly got into what I wanted that character to be, and it created a unique voice for him that I've not seen anywhere else in comics, and I just love the hell out of it. And that's Hudlin's Run.
Yeah, it's a good run.
Yeah, I'm reading through it right now on comic reviews, and it's got its problems, particularly in the way it treats women.
Yeah.
It's not that it treats all women as objects to be, won and that they're all gold diggers or anything like that. There are independent women who think for themselves and don't give a shit about T'Challa's status. It's just that they're not the highlight of the goddamn run as far as female character representation goes.
Well, there was a weird period, right around Hudlin, if not right before, where T'Challa was kind of a pimp, and it was weird. There was this really short-lived part of Black Panther's history where the book was really it was like if a white person said, I want to write extensive Black culture, and that's what they thought it was.
Oof, that's harsh.
I'm
not surprised.
Yeah,
that's harsh.
Yeah, because he was wearing a suit, he had a cane and wore multiple rings and sunglasses at night. It was this really weird, unintentionally racist stereotype of oh, so this is what cool Black is like.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really missed the point.
Yeah, I get you there. I'm echoing just a bit, Steve.
Sorry.
It's one of those things where Black Panther. And Hudlin wrote a fucking thesis statement about Black Panther in Who is the Black Panther, and I love it to death, where he's Black Panther is the epitome of cool in the same way that hip-hop understands, the idea of elevating a black man who we've been told by society should never be in a position of power, grace, or wealth. And so to get to see all of that but mix it with compassion as well, is inherently fascinating. I love Who is the Black Panther. I don't understand how anyone could not enjoy that series unless you're a member of the Ku Klux Klan. I'm not saying that if you don't like that series, you're a member of the Ku Klux Klan. That is the only way I could conceive of people that do not like that series, though, even though I know there are people who don't. But there's that moment where he saves a kid's life in Wakanda, and the kid looks at him and he goes, Panther God, thank you so much. And he just takes off his mask and he goes, I'm a man like you. Anything I can do, you can do as well. That is just, on so many levels, that is amazing. Just that is a great scene for a superhero. That is a great moment for how a leader should be. That is a great moment for just so many fucking things. I love it.
And I mean, Black Panther's one of those characters where Jack Kirby may not necessarily know, Stan Lee may not necessarily know, but when he came out, people sort of got what he had to be. He is fully formed from the get-go. So he first showed up in Fantastic Four. He's got 2 or 3 issues there. Doesn't really matter that much. That arc is really just kind of there to be oh, hey, there is this highly technologically advanced African civilization. But after that, he shows up in Avengers, and he has his own book a little bit afterwards, called Jungle Action, which I'll get to in a second. But Black Panther from the start is used very specifically and very intentionally to talk about political issues, civil rights issues, and Black experience, but he does it in a way that is so ahead of its time. I feel like this is the difference between Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, and T'Challa, because Jon Stewart, Green Lantern in almost a more liberal sense of like, this is the strong black man of America. T'Challa is this is black identity as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much always been about that. Wakanda's never been captured. Wakanda's never been colonized. There is a pride in that, and there is a power in that. But also there is T'Challa's been around the world to study and knows that this is unique, and he embraces the hell out of it. There's a really good Avengers issue where he's walking around in like Wakandan clothing, and the Avengers are like, you should adopt a more civilized look, and he's like, are you saying African culture is not civilized?
Mm-hmm.
Like it knows what it is. There's a really good book by Paul Gilroy called The Black Atlantic. But in that book, he talks about the dual consciousness of black culture, which is you are black in America or Britain, but you are also black in Africa, and you can never forget that.
Yeah, and it's to the point about the clothing. It's just really interesting as a thought experiment. Like, fuck Confederate, fuck the man in the high castle. Give me the alternate history of, like, an African nation. Give me the alternate history of the Congo that was never colonized by Belgium, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm all for alternate history, and, like, that's why I'm not, screaming my head off about Confederate. I'm like, all right, fine, alternate history can be interesting and can be used to comment on the modern day. Sure, why not? I mean, I don't think that's what they're going to do, but I'll give them some rope and they can hang me with it. But, like, that, why not do something alternate history like that is just inherently, that's fucking cool. I want to see that world. And that's what Wakanda should serve as, is, okay, yeah, there are taboos and, just shit that, like, we in Western culture do not understand and consider disgusting even, that occur in tribal African cultures. What would a tribal African culture that developed into a nation and lived until the modern day without a history of colonial oppression, that repressed acts like that, turn into? What would that be? And I think what makes that question so interesting is you don't readily have an answer. Like, it's just hard to conceive of what that could be, because so much of the world has been affected by imperialism and in particular Western colonialism.
And I mean, this is why the whole notion of an Afrofuturist genre is so important. This is why Octavia Butler books are so important. It's very much about we've only understood certain aspects of race and identity as subservient to something else. Just the act of trying to think of them independently of that is a mode of resistance to imperialism.
Yeah.
So like in Black Panther particularly, we're like the whole notion of, and one of my favorite comic books of all time is a Black Panther story called Panther's Rage, which is his first real solo story. And the premise behind that story is T'Challa's gone back to Wakanda after being with the Avengers for a long time, and he has to deal with Eric Killmonger, who's saying that you interacted with America, you interacted with the world. How can we trust that your interest has not been skewed? And isn't it a problem that you thought that it was okay for you to leave in the first place? And then Black Panther very specifically has to deal with, regardless of how powerful your own civilization is, does mere contact with people that are not on your level taint something about this? Does Black Panther, on some level, have to cede ground to people like the Avengers, and is that symbolically a thing he needs to be wary of? It's such a good story that really encompasses that black pride is not anti-white, but white pride is anti-black.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing, like, I legitimately believe it comes from a place of ignorance. When people say, why can we have black pride but not white pride? It's because black is a cultural identity whereas white is an imperialist identity. Like, you can have German pride, you can have Irish pride, you can have British pride, you can even have American pride. You cannot have white pride, because white is a made-up race that has been used as an excuse and a justification for imperialism, whereas black is exactly the same thing. There is no, like, originally speaking, original sin kind of idea, there was no black until white people made black a thing, right? Until white people made it that you should be ashamed of the color of your skin. Beforehand, like, tribes in Africa warred amongst themselves just fine on their own, just like any other nation's early history did. European explorers came and fucked with shit and kind of, looped them all together as the same thing. So they did the same thing with Native Americans. Like, Native Americans shouldn't be an identity. It should be whatever tribe you actually belong to. But because of white colonialism, it all got looped together. And so to have pride in that you are this, was considered a subservient race, is an act of rebellion, is an act of outstanding. Whereas to have pride in that you were this quote-unquote superior race is an act of bigotry. And that's what people don't understand. That's, that is a complex level of thought that is why people don't get it. We have German Fest here in town. Haley's family is German. They are proud of their German heritage. That's fine. You can be proud of where your damn family came from, even if you don't really understand it. Whatever. You are entitled to your ignorance. You're entitled to cherry pick your history, just like the rest of us. But, you're not allowed to be proud of an imperialist identity. That is why white pride is not okay. German pride, fine. Those are two different levels.
And I mean, this is the thing. This is the thing even Marvel, doesn't really understand. So, Christopher Priest is the big Black Panther writer. I still think Don McGregor's got the best Black Panther stories ever. But, when someone says read Black Panther, they more often than not say Christopher Priest. And if you can't find that, go to Hudlin's run. But this period in the late 90s to the early 2000s, Marvel was really wary of the fact that they couldn't get more white people into Black Panther. And Christopher Priest's run, it invents the character of Everett Ross, who's I think he's a district attorney. He's a lawyer. He's something like that. And it's a really great run. But over time, people have started criticizing it because it became really clear that Christopher Priest was working with Marvel to try and make Black Panther seem friendly to white people. That book got whiter over time. And this is a thing Hudlin even talks about, where Hudlin's he wrote that book for a white audience. Because they thought the book got too aggressively black. And they didn't realize that is itself racism talking. That Black Panther leaning into and being proud of being black, the fact that you can misconstrue that as being aggressive is a problem.
Yeah. And so that's why the creation of the character is so fascinating to look into, because the story I always heard, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, was that Kirby wanted to create a black superhero because after years of being in the comic book industry from basically its inception in the modern sense of things, obviously not pulp novels, but whatever, dime novels, not pulp novels, he was basically there since the modern inception of the industry, and as a working artist who was basically dirt poor for most of his life, he kind of had to draw whatever people gave him to draw. And he always felt really bad about drawing other marginalized peoples, being a Jewish person, as cowardly with black people, disgusting with Japanese people, so on and so forth. So, come around the late 50s into the 60s, he was pressuring Stan Lee that he wanted to create a flagship black superhero. And Stan Lee kind of came, and then, Marvel Method, who came up with exactly what from there. is a bit messy. But that's the story I always heard. I don't know if that's 100% true or not.
Yeah, no, that is true. It was very intentional to like create the first black superhero. It's not the first black character in comics. It's not even like the first main character who's black in a comic. But as far as like being a strong character who is a superhero in a mainstream culture, Black Panther was the first, and he was intended to be. There's some back and forth on that. Like at one point, they were gonna call him Coal Tiger, Coal, but make it sound like Cool Tiger, and he had like this really obnoxiously ugly yellow costume that they scrapped. When the Black Panther Party...
NerdSync did an interesting video about this, actually, where they traced back where the names of the Black Panther Party and the character Black Panther came from, and it all goes back to the same political party in the South, which is interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So there is a connection. It's just that Black Panther as a name was not chosen because of the Black Panther Party's existence, and because of the Black Panther Party's existence, they renamed him something in the early 60s or 70s. It was Black something, but like they actively named him. It was actively not Black Panther for a little while, just because of that connection.
Yeah, and then they dropped it.
Yeah, I don't remember what they renamed it, but it was something
like Black Leopard or something like that.
It might have been Leopard. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but like people very quickly want to latch on to like the connection between Black Panther and Black Panthers. Mm-hmm. And there's stuff there. The Black Panther poster, the first one that was teased, is just T'Challa sitting on a throne, looking at the audience with this costume on, and very quickly people started paralleling that to that famous picture of Huey Newton sitting on a chair with a rifle. And
by people,
a lot of people were like, well. No, that was a thing. Afropunk did a whole article on it. Like this was a thing. We're like, oh, that's clever. A lot of people got like, oh, this is not clever. There's tons of scenes and posters of just the main character sitting on a throne, but they didn't realize that yeah, there are. But the fact that this is a black character, armed, sitting on a throne, means something specifically because he's named Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It's just this weird thing where people don't want to think about these things outside of their bubble of like, no, it's not that it's the most original thing. It's not that it's the most intentional thing. It's that for certain people, certain symbols exist, and for certain other people, they don't. Black Panther, I feel like, is ultimately one of the most important fictional characters of all time.
Yeah, I would kill for the Huey Freeman Black Panther crossover comic. That needs to be a thing.
Oh, so badass.
Yeah. No, I agree. I really like that, and every time we talk about the Black Panther Party and Black Panther the character, my head always goes back to, and we're so close to it. I really want Marvel to do it, to just pull the trigger on this. I really need somewhere in the Black Panther movie for them to say that the Black Panther Party named itself after the Wakandan tradition.
That would be the coolest thing ever, wouldn't it?
Right? I would be so pleased with myself. Like, God, that'd be awesome. But anyway, so yeah, Black Panther and its connection to the party and the actual black experience, particularly in America, but the way in which it connects itself back to Africa and uses that to comment on, you know, the way Africa was fucking raped for centuries by the rest of the world is inherently fascinating. Like, again, I'm going to go back to Hudlin because this is my main exposure to the character that I love the most. I love that scene where the dude's presenting, like, all these known geological facts about Wakanda, and they go, they have vast oil reserves. That explains why they're so rich. They don't even pump it. Like, just the levels of commentary in Western imperialism and resource plundering is so complex right there. And I love that to death.
Yeah. I mean, it's impossible to get a Black Panther run that is in not some way politically relevant or powerful, whether or not the art writer wants to go there. It's just who the character is. It's naturally there.
And, you know, the interesting thing about that is the only one I'm aware of that's not expressly political, just beyond, Black King kind of thing, is Kirby's run.
Yeah, Kirby's Black Panther run is nowhere near as good as you wish it was.
Yeah, like everyone...
And I feel like that's the right phrasing, where like it's Jack Kirby on a book for like 10 issues by himself. You wish this was great.
Yeah, and like I have this with all of Kirby's like self-written stuff. I'm like, Kirby is an amazing artist. I don't love the way he draws people just as a personal stylistic standpoint. I love Kirby's environments and his vehicles and technology and stuff, though. That always looks amazing. But everyone talks about how Kirby was like the greatest writer in history. Like Alan Moore did a whole video where he thought Stan Lee was the greatest writer of all time, the most imaginative, most versatile, and then he found out that Jack Kirby did all the work, and that Stan Lee just kind of altered the dialogue. And I do not agree with that assessment, because I've read Kirby, and he is an idea factory. He throws away more ideas than I wake up with in the morning, right? But, like, just the way that man writes dialogue and progresses characters is really, really sparse. And so I will give Stan Lee more credit than I feel other people think he deserves. Because I don't think that you would have the love and admiration for the characters the way that you do now if we just got Kirby's original dialogue in there and stuff. And I think Black Panther's a good example of that.
I feel like Kirby gets better over time. I think his Fourth World Saga is interesting. There's only, of the 4 books in that saga, you only need to read 2 of them. Mm-hmm. But like I feel like Kirby can be a good writer. Like his Mr. Miracle is fantastic, but like his Black Panther run, I feel like he taps into the wrong part of himself. Where like Mr. Miracle is very clearly, that entire original run is a giant metaphor for anxiety, and you would think he was capable of doing that with Black Panther. But he kind of just turned Black Panther in the 70s into Batman in the 70s, which is globe-trotting crazy adventures.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, it's just... I think he's a good plotter. I guess I'd put him up there with George Lucas. Where, like, as far as his writing ability, he's good at plotting. He understands that a character should have an arc. I don't think he ever, like, quite gets... like how developed a character should be, or how to really write dialogue. Like, I love New Gods, and I love the way Kirby writes the New Gods. I cannot stand the way Kirby writes average people, because there is no distinction between them. And so it makes the epic speeches of the New Gods less epic, when normal everyday people kind of talk the same way, you know? And I have a very similar thing with Black Panther. Like, Black Panther talks so elegantly, and, there's the classic, like, Marvel-style alliteration from Black Panther. And it would be cool if he was the only one talking like that. But he's not. And so it just makes it less special, and ultimately, like, it just feels like he doesn't understand how to write dialogue.
This is the thing that I really appreciate about both Civil War and Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Because it's difficult to, like, get Black Panther's voice distinct from the rest of the Avengers cast. But, like, Chadwick Boseman's accent and the voice actor in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, they both, like, have this distinct sound that makes them feel more commanding, more different than everyone else in the cast. And the comics, that they have it's hard to do that in the comics. In a lot of the Don McGregor stuff, T'Challa just doesn't talk. It's not that he's mute, it's just that, like, it's more about other people talking to him than it is about him speaking himself. So, like, it's just hard to get that voice right. But if he is going to talk, it has to hit. Yeah,
I agree with that. And that's the thing I love about the Hudlin run. When he talks, he's just witty as fuck, or just awesome. Like, there was this crossover with or part of the whole House of M event, and like Sabretooth is in T'Challa's throne room and tries to kill him with a gun, and T'Challa just like bends a gun over his shoulder and shoots Sabretooth like right in the arm, or right in the hand maybe. And he's like, "I can't believe you shot me," and he goes, "Why not? I'm a very good shot." That's just like really snappy, superior dialogue right there. Like, of course I shot you. I'm a really good shot. Why would you not believe that I shot you? That's really good dialogue.
He's the most badass. I love it. T'Challa, he's got a snark about him. I don't know when this got into the comics. It wasn't there originally, but they retroactively put it there. But like it was a very active thing for T'Chaka, who everyone in Wakanda like grows up, lives there, is educated there. But T'Chaka very intentionally sent T'Challa out to other universities and to travel the world so that he could learn from every tradition and then bring it back to Wakanda, which became a very interesting political conflict in the comics. But because of that, T'Challa's got like there's like a degree of like confidence and ease that he always has that no one else in Wakanda does. Like everyone is very business and everyone's very serious and everyone takes the title of Black Panther very seriously. And T'Challa just kind of rolls in and kind of like smirks and stuff. And it's interesting where like his world weariness seems to make him more likable instead of less likable.
Well, like that's the great thing about T'Challa that just makes him so much fun is like, even in the most serious moments in the Who's the Black Panther comic, you can tell he's having so much fun getting to be the Black Panther. Like, I love the moment when he's dragging
he's an adventurer.
Yeah, I love the moment when he's, like, dragging the Black Knight around behind him, and he's like, "Earlier you said God was on your side, but now that you are losing, does that mean that you were wrong, or did God change sides?" And that's like heresy. It is just a philosophical question. Like, he's having fun. In the most serious, like, heart-racing moment, his country's being invaded, and he's like, "This is actually pretty fucking cool. I'm having the time of my life right now." That is just so damn endearing about the character. And
yeah, he's got the thing that I always wish Batman does, which is you're a super genius, but you also kind of know it and you love it.
Yeah.
There's a Hulk comic at some point where we get like T'Challa's credentials, and he's got like 3 PhDs, and he's considered like one of the 10 smartest people in the entire Marvel universe.
And with a universe like Reed Richards that says something.
Yeah, like T'Challa can have a conversation on par with Tony Stark and Reed Richards. He is that smart.
Yep, totally. Okay. I don't know, you want to go on to recommendations then?
Sure. I'm good.
Because I can't think of much else to say about him. Let's add another segment to this just for shits and grins. Because apparently this will eventually just become a series of segments as opposed to an actual conversation. Because I asked this last time, and I think it's just interesting. Favorite character design or costume?
I don't like Black Panther with a cape. I like the more original design of it. It's the Kirby-esque full body black suit. In the Don McGregor stuff, he's got the full Kirby black suit, but he's also got like a necklace of teeth around him. I think that's probably my favorite Black Panther design. It's just whatever's in the Don McGregor stuff.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar thing. I don't like T'Challa to have a cape unless it's like when he's acting in ceremonial roles. When he's in court, as it were, I like him to have a cape. Otherwise, when he's in battle, I don't. It'd be neat if you could get like a retracting cape or something. Those are so impractical and make no sense, but they're awesome. But like, I tend to agree with you. That's why I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe Civil War costume so much. We were talking about that before we started recording, but like, shitty cell phone pictures taken of the set look amazing with that costume. That costume just looks amazing before any digital stuff is done to it. It doesn't take any special lighting or anything like that. It just looks gorgeous.
It is literally the best costume in the MCU. I don't want them to ever change it.
Well, I think they are doing like slight changes to it between Civil War and the movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I know in the movie they showed off the costume at Comic-Con, and it still looks pretty accurate to what we saw in Civil War. But apparently, from the footage description we got from San Diego, he gets a second costume in the movie.
Okay. And I'm sure it's gonna be like, you know, that kind of Iron Man 2 thing where it's like, yeah, it's a new suit. It's got a triangle. That's like, I'm sure it's gonna be something like that because they pretty much struck gold with that costume. I don't think they're gonna be changing it that much, right?
I mean, I feel like they know it too, like, because that's a hard costume to do, and they got it just right.
Yeah. So I love the Civil War costume though. It's perfect, and it does kind of have that teeth thing, but it's like not actually teeth. So,
can I just to tack on to this? I will say there is a worst Black Panther costume.
Okay.
And it's that dumb thing where he doesn't have sleeves and you see his mouth.
Yeah, so that the Ultimate Avengers 2 movie.
Yes, well, he has this in the Avengers comics too, but yeah, Ultimate Avengers 2, that costume is awful.
Yeah, that looks... I'm imagining that in my head, and it's stupid. Just, like, keep the... Like, alright, to get back to what I was saying at the beginning... Yeah, there's a lot of Batman-esque elements with Black Panther. Do some stuff to make sure that those don't get too close. Make sure you can't see his mouth. Also, don't give him a cape.
Just, it doesn't look good. I mean, and
round the ears, don't point the ears. Important details.
Yeah, the ears are tricky.
Yeah.
But they played around with it where, like, sometimes he has a short cape, sometimes he has a long cape. I don't like the cape. Just, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I tend not to like the cape again unless it's more like he's wearing it ceremoniously and he takes it off for a fight kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess it's just the art thing for me where, like, when I look at him, it's very clearly that he's intended to move dynamically, and just I don't see a cape working with that. Like, when he's in that pounce pose, the cape should not be there.
Yeah, and, like, you know, you just imagine, like, Black Panther crawling through trees and stuff, chasing down someone, and, like, with a cape that would catch, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No capes!
It's a Batman thing, it's not a Black Panther
exactly.
thing.
I don't imagine Black Panther gliding over skyscrapers. I imagine him, you know, jumping from tree to tree, Tarzan and on vines and shit like that.
Yeah.
Okay, What about recommended stories? I'm going to recommend Who is the Black Panther. I think it is a phenomenal story, and by extension, the BET animated series Black Panther, Marvel Knights Black Panther.
They say animated series. It was just a motion comic.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that bothers me, because when they say that, I was hoping they were going to, like, adapt the whole run, and they didn't.
They might have if it had been more popular.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. But yeah, the other one's really good. So I'm going to recommend Panther's Rage, which is Jungle Action 5 through 18. It's what Dwayne McDuffie really advocated for early Black Panther stuff. He called it at one point the first multi-part superhero epic. It's amazing. That book in 1973 does critical race theory in philosophy before philosophy was doing it. It's genius. It's just one of the best things I've ever read. And then also Christopher Priest's Black Panther run. I have issues with that run, but it's still a pretty damn good seminal work, especially when you look at early 2000s Marvel and how everything else sucked.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Also, I guess just Civil War, because he's got the best character arc in that movie.
He's so good in Civil War. He's my favorite part of that movie.
Yeah. Okay, that'll do it for this episode. Steve, who are we going to be talking about next time?
I've been watching a lot of Dragon Ball lately. Do you want to talk about? Let's talk about Goku.
Goku. Sweet. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the Exile.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.